This is Adopting Identities by This Is Entertaining. Read to you by Evening Ruby. Categories F/M. General. Archive warnings. Graphic depiction of violence. Major character death. Chapter 1. Many people would look around the conference table and assume that Iron Man or Captain America were the most powerful ones in the room. They might think that Black Widow was the most intimidating, or that Scarlet Witch and her mental manipulation was the most pervasive. They would look around the room of heroes, gathered almost like a business meeting, and assume they knew and calculated all the threats. They would be wrong. A thin smirk sat on Pepper Potts' lips as her hands rested on their familiar position. Pepper knew that she was lacking muscles, lacking training, lacking powers ever since that horrendous event several months ago when she'd nearly died. That didn't mean that she had any less skill than any other member of the Avengers team. She ran Stark Incorporated, even when it seemed as though Tony was attempting to run it into the ground. She maintained contact with S.H.I.E.L.D. about the Avengers protocol behind her boyfriend's back until it couldn't be hidden any longer. She stayed with him, with Tony Stark, with Iron Man, through the panic of the Avengers, the terror and the confusion of the Mandarin, and through the destruction of Ultron and everything that followed. That had almost changed. She had been close, so close to asking for a break. Not necessarily a separation, just a break. She'd almost sent him to do that college presentation by himself, but in the end, she hadn't. She couldn't say why exactly. She just knew that for all he put her through, the thought of losing him hurt more than any of the nightmares that kept her up at night. She was strong, and she would not be pushed away. She was not one to ever be underestimated, especially in this particular setting. Anyone who dared to oppose the Avengers in this room was entering her world, and she would show them who held true power of the board meeting. The Secretary of State didn't have a chance. Thaddeus Ross had barely opened his mouth before Pepper stood fluidly to her feet, her imposing heels clacking distinctly and confidently against the tiled floors as she took the bulging folder from the man's hands. "Sokovia Accords, right? I'm afraid we'll have to decline." The man immediately pasted on a smarmy politician's smile. "Now, Miss Potts, I don't think you understand. I got an email about it earlier today. I understand completely." Steve interrupted, his demeanor serious. "I don't?" "Yeah," said Sam with a nod. "Care to share with the rest of the class?" "Mr. Ross is about to propose a document signed by the UN which would give them the power to choose when, where, and if the Avengers act. Because the Avengers have had no true regulating force since the collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D., the UN believes they are being more careless. They fear that the Avengers' anonymity plays a part in the wreckage that we leave behind. I'm also sure he has a video or two in an attempt to guilt you into agreement." "This isn't guilting them. When the casualties and damages really happened," the Secretary of the State argued, his false smile long gone. "I'm just pointing out the facts." The red-haired CEO simply waved a hand dismissively. "Regardless, we're going to decline." Tony straightened in his seat, bags under his eyes heavy, as his mind replayed his conversation with the distraught mother as he waited for the elevator. "Pep, can we at least think about this a little bit more? I mean, having some control wouldn't be—" "Tony," she interrupted briskly, but not unkindly. "I've worked as the head of committee since you hired me and refused to set foot in the conference room. Trust me when I say I don't want one in charge of protecting the world." The man frowned and picked up his drink, but sat back in his chair without another word. This was Pepper, after all. He trusted her far more than he trusted himself. Rhodey, however, was much less confident. "Wait, how many nations signed this thing in the first place?" 107, Ross answered immediately, and War Machine's eyes widened. We can't act like this isn't important. Not when 107 nations think it's a good idea. I agree, Pepper responded, shocking the room. Obviously, the Avengers can't have complete free reign anymore. We need a system of accountability. But, she included sharply as Steve opened his mouth to argue, accountability does not necessarily mean control. Friday, the Sokovian compromise, if you will. Immediately, a light blue hologram appeared over the table, displaying page after page of type and charts. Ross, however, simply frowned. What is this? This is a compromise. The Avengers agree to inform the leader of a country of their intent to enter, or that there is a possibility they will have to enter prior to arrival. The leader may deny them entry, but the Avengers cannot be held accountable for anything that happens in the country and are free to work with any surrounding countries that give them clearance. If they enter despite a command not to, then the United Nations can vote on a suitable punishment, weighing both the contributions of the Avengers in that country and the leader's reason for not giving entrance. We will also give each member of the UN a direct line to the Avengers Tower and ensure that it is constantly manned and protected with the best software Tony can. If there is ever a call that goes unanswered, I have outlined a procedure that is similar to when the Avengers enter an area without permission. The woman closed the hologram and handed the Secretary of State a flash drive. Accountability without control. I have already taken the liberty of passing this along to the other members of the United Nations, and I look forward to hashing out the final details at the conference this weekend. She gave the man a smile, confident as though her plans were not displayed in a hologram, but rather set in stone. 10 minutes later, Ross was sitting at his car, at a loss as to how he completely lost the situation. "Sir," his driver asked, the tone questioning, but professional, not intrusive. Ross scowled and toyed with the drive in his hand, reaching to pour himself a stiff drink from the minibar in the limo. "Take me to my office. See if you can't call in anyone who's working today. We have some documents to go over." The driver nodded, setting up the barrier even as he turned on the Bluetooth sitting in his ear. The car sat for only a moment longer before pulling away, leaving the imposing building behind. Back in the conference room, bickering starts the instant the door closes behind Ross. Though no one was so opposed to the arrangement as to right out argue against it, as in all good compromises, no one felt truly content with the solution. Pepper allowed the heroes to gripe for a few moments, knowing that the Sokovian compromise was a firecracker next to the bomb she was about to drop. The Accords were only one problem, she announces loudly, cutting off the hero's complaints, and frankly, that one was an easy fix, comparatively. Immediately, the room descends into silence as Pepper pulls up one of the many news reports covering the bombing in Lagos. The TV, muted, nonetheless displays a constant barrage of carnage and angry faces. People holding signs with crossed-out A's, and millions of angry blog posts and reviews. The table broke out into groans, and Wanda paled as her name appeared again and again. Vision was the first to speak, surprising the room. "Forgive me, Miss Potts, but I am not sure we can do anything about the minds of others." "Then you've never been a publicist," the woman answered with a smirk. "Honestly, with some of the messes I've had to clean up during Tony's pre-Ironman days, this seems tame." With that, she turned towards the screen once more, as plans and statistics began rising. "From now on, all the proceeds from our copyrights on the Avengers name and logo, and 15% of the profit from all of your personal names goes towards setting up relief agencies, hospitals, counseling, and construction projects to help people and cities who have been adversely affected by danger the Avengers were involved with. Also, Stark Industries and several of the companies we partner with are either donating or creating relief agencies as well, including a number of physical therapy clinics and orphanages. Also, we have nearly all our grants going towards projects for innovating physical therapy, medical supplies, and construction advancements, and have urged others to focus on the same." We are also forming a number of scholarships to help pay for education for those whose families' livelihoods have been damaged. You can choose for yourself what you would do with the other 85% of your personal gains, but remember that our expenses as Avengers aren't necessarily anything to sneeze at. We're far from being in danger financially, but a nest egg never hurt anyone, especially not when we're constantly working to upgrade our equipment. In addition to this, I've hired a team of lawyers, actuaries, and other experts from a committee to speak with several large insurance agencies about including superhuman clauses to specifically address the injuries or property damage caused by a fight. The first meeting with Geico isn't until next week, but my team seems confident that the only real issue will be determining what should constitute as accidents directly related to an Avengers attack, and if other superhumans, such as Daredevil and Superman, should be included or not. I'll let them sort that out. "Wow," said Sam simply, impressed. Pepper casts him a smile, while Tony puffs up, proud to be dating this incredible woman. Of course, this isn't all. "It's not?" Steve asks in surprise. "Of course not. This isn't the kind of problem you just throw money at and hope it gets better. We need to be actively showing that we care, not that we're willing to pay until the community shuts up. So, first of all, Wanda..." The Scarlet Witch perked up at the sound of her name. "I'm sorry, sweetie, but you're our biggest focus right now. First thing tomorrow, you're going to head back to Logos and help them clean up the wreckage. Visit the families and the survivors. Use your powers to help if they are useful, but get down and dirty as well. The more pictures that circulate of your gross and sweaty self helping to drywall without air conditioning, the better. Show everyone how much you truly care about what happened. You won't be able to change the minds of everyone, but I know it would help your conscience just as much as our image." Wanda nodded in agreement, unable to speak as her heart constricted with pain at the thought of those who were hurt because of her. "Secondly, and this is going to affect every one of you," she enunciated clearly, meeting the eyes of each and every person in the room one by one. "Everyone that these centers help, everyone who is affected by this, most of the people protesting, their lives were changed because of the Avengers. Now, I'm not saying it's our fault, or that any of you should try and take the blame for the people who tried to take over the world, but the fact remains the same. Someone terrifyingly charged in with you on their heels, and something happened that impacted people forever. Maybe they lost a loved one, a limb, a home, a job, maybe just the ability to feel safe. They are likely going to have to shoulder that loss for the rest of their life, so we need to demonstrate that we see how their lives are altered, and show that their losses have impacted us as well. A symbolic but true act of sacrifice, directly linked to assuming responsibility for the losses that these everyday people had to face." "I take it you already have something in mind?" Natasha asked, arching a brow. Pepper nodded decisively, but the gesture does not hide her nervous gulp and her fingers tightening on her tablet as she prepares to give the most controversial news of the day. "Yes, and I already have a team looking for the perfect candidate. We, as a whole, the Avengers, are going to adopt an Avengers orphan." "What? There's no way any of us are qualified to watch a child. No. Avengers orphan? Is that really a thing? That's not happening. What would possess you to make you think this is a smart idea? You are not dragging some kid into this." Pepper just nodded and straightened, waiting for the room to quiet. That was the response she had been expecting anyways.